Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Juan Carlos Brando, and today is a very important day. It's May the 9th, which is one of the days that we start questioning what's going on this year um, regarding to some decisions that are made in the immigration department, but also in the federal government, the federal administration, and also the state's administration. So, if you have any questions regarding to immigration, please feel free to ask them to the attorney Noor Chamas, who is joining us today in representation of the law firm of Margaret W. Wong and Associates. Hello, attorney Noor. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm doing good. Thank you so much. And well, Attorney Noor, one of the things that I would like to ask is, what if I'm driving? I don't have a driver's license. I get pulled over by the police, and then they detain me, and they put me on immigration hold due to these new laws that are coming up in Florida, Texas, and now Georgia.
So they had similar programs before, like what was called the Secure Communities Program, which meant that if you were, for whatever reason, stopped or arrested or detained by local law enforcement, that they would have a system connected to the Department of Homeland Security. So when, let's say they take you in and they fingerprint you, that information immediately goes to the Department of Homeland Security system, and if it produces any information about you having no documents in the United States, then it's possible for Immigration and Customs Enforcement to place what is called a detainer or a hold on you. That means that under that program, the local law enforcement would be required to hold you for 48 hours, or in some cases 72 hours, in order to give an opportunity for ICE to come and pick you up. Normally, if you're there beyond that time and nobody comes, they're supposed to release you. But under current policies and current laws they're trying to pass, they want to do similar things. Is that if you get pulled over, or if you get arrested or detained by local law enforcement, and you have no documents, they're reporting you to the Department of Homeland Security so they can come and pick you up and place you in removal proceedings.
One decision that has been pending for, I would say, maybe 4 years is the Real ID Act to come on effect for people that don't have documents or that need to travel or that need a legal ID. Mm-hmm. So one of the Real ID examples are the driver licenses in states like Georgia, that they have the little star on the corner. But what will happen with these people that want to travel inside the country, but they don't have a driver's license, they don't have a valid US ID? Mm-hmm. What can they use to travel, and what is the risk that they are assuming if they want to travel by plane or by bus or train within the United States?
So you're right. The Real ID Act has been passed a long time ago. It was in 2005. However, they've been delaying the enforcement of this new ID policy of having your state ID or driver's license conform with the Real ID Act requirements, which is that it would include, when you do get your driver's license, they would look at your Social Security and your passport and everything, and they would connect it all together so that when you have a driver's license, it would be similar to having a passport, that all your background has been cleared. and it makes it allegedly more secure, but they keep delaying the implementation of that policy. Now, normally you can travel with a passport. A passport is a document that does comply with the Real ID Act. So if you don't have a driver, even if your driver's license did not comply with the Real ID Act under that policy, you can still use your passport. Now, if you have a U.S. passport, obviously, if you're a U.S. citizen, it's not a problem. But even if you're a foreign citizen, you can travel with your passport. And that's strictly for ID purposes, in order to make sure that you are the person who you're claiming to be. So they look at your ID. Old state IDs, I guess, were less secure, is the reasoning behind it, and so that's why they wanted those new state IDs to conform to this Real ID Act requirement. But if you have no state ID, or if you have no driver's license, you can still travel with your passport. Now, if you have no status in the United States, I do not recommend that you travel through an airport, because you could very well be stopped and detained for having no documents. If you are in immigration court proceedings, you could travel. I would always advise that you take any hearing notices or any evidence that you are in removal proceedings, so that you're not detained. And also, if you have any other status, such as like DACA or TPS or anything like that, would always make sure you have evidence of that.
Okay, thank you very much, Attorney Noor. And yeah, this is very interesting, because some people want to travel, but they don't do it because they don't have documents, or they want to take the risk. So I would recommend for all of you to talk to an attorney before you make a decision. And what about these people that had been put in proceedings at the border, but their passports were taken away?
So once you're put in proceedings, it's very normal that they actually take your passport and keep it with them, in order to keep you from being a flight risk. So essentially, without the passport, you wouldn't be able to just go and hide somewhere, because you would need your passport. But once your proceedings are completed, somehow, if there's a resolution, generally you should be able to get that passport back. Also, if you need your passport for any specific thing, such as some people, let's say, want to register to take an exam, or they want to get their driver's license, something like that, you can make a limited request to get your passport for a limited period of time, in order to complete what you need to complete, and then you would have to return it back to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. If you have to travel somewhere, sometimes they'll allow you to take your passport in order to travel for a specific reason. However, if they generally don't like you, like, especially if you're under, say, order of supervision, or if you're under ISAP, they generally do not like to give you your passport and have you leave the state. They would rather you stay in the state, and that you can only leave if you seek permission from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So I know it makes things more complicated, and they tend to do that. Their reasoning is that they want to make sure that people who are placed in proceedings are not just going and fleeing. And what they mean by fleeing is not that you leave the country, because they actually don't care if you leave the country, but that you go and go somewhere where you're out of sight, where they can't find you, where they can't make sure that you come back to immigration court, so that they cannot deport you. So that's the whole reasoning behind it.
Okay, thank you very much, Attorney Noor. And don't forget, the phone number that you need to call to talk to the attorneys in the law firm is 216-279-3984, 216-279-3984. We have the first question coming in from today, and it says, "Hi, my husband passed away and my family petition was pending. I-130 approved, but waiting for the adjustment of status. My case is lost?"
No, not necessarily. So if you have, if you're married to a U.S. citizen, and your U.S. citizen spouse files an I-130 for you, now if it's pending or if it's approved, if your spouse unfortunately passes away, that petition, which is the I-130 family-based petition, automatically turns into an I-360 widow or widower petition. So if your husband passed away and your I-130 was approved, you should still be able to adjust your status. However, I would strongly recommend that you go talk to an attorney to see exactly what you need to do in order to proceed with the process. But I don't. But I would just let you know that your case is not lost. You would still be able to. You should still be able to adjust your status based on your husband's U.S. citizen status before he passed away.
Okay, thank you very much, attorney. Yeah, this is something important. We never expect for someone that we love to pass away, but if this happens, what do we need to do? This is the answer. And if you want to get more information, just give us a call, 216-279-3984, 216-279-3984, attorneys at the law firm of Margaret W. Wong and Associates. Next question is, hi, I am from Honduras. I have TPS, but I didn't apply for it anymore. The question is if I can reapply for TPS since I didn't renew it anymore and kind of lost it 5 years ago.
You potentially could do that. You have to have a good explanation as to why you failed to renew your TPS. Now you initially did get it, so that makes it a little bit better. But you still would have to, you'd file a renewal, and then you would need an explanation as to why you were not able to renew your application for 5 years. And they would have to be convinced that you had a good reason for it. And so you may still be able to renew your TPS. But again, I would advise that you go talk to an attorney, and we'd be happy to help you out and look at your file and your papers to see what kind of argument we can make for you as to why you failed to do that for 5 years.
Thank you very much, attorney. And don't forget the phone number is 216-279-3984. 216-279-3984 is the phone number that you need to call in order to talk to the attorneys. Next question is, hello, what are the chances of winning asylum for an Indian person?
Well, that's a very broad question because there's very specific requirements in order to win an asylum case. Of course, I don't know any of your facts based on that question. I do strongly advise you to go talk to an attorney. However, just in general, when you file for asylum in the United States, number one, in order to qualify for asylum, you have to file within 1 year of entering the U.S. If you don't file within 1 year of entering the U.S., then you would not qualify for asylum unless you can show either exceptional circumstances which prevented you from filing within 1 year, or changed country conditions or changed personal circumstances that gave rise now to a fear of returning to your country. Then you also have to show that you either suffered past persecution in your country, and there's a lot of legal definitions of these terms, so that's why it's very important to speak to an attorney. So when I say persecution, you may think of it as something other than what the courts have defined it. So make sure you always go see an attorney before you do anything. But in general, you have to show that you either suffered past persecution, or if you didn't suffer past persecution, that you have what is called a well-founded fear of future persecution. The persecution has to be on account of one of 5 protected groups, that is nationality, race, religion, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. And the persecution has to be at the hands of the government or one of its agents, or groups or individuals that the government is either unable or unwilling to control. So you have to show all these things in order to succeed in an asylum application. So, I mean, to answer the question, I can't tell you what your chances are when I have no idea what your case is. But I can tell you that it would all depend on what happened to you in India or why you're afraid to go back in India. And it's very important that you actually consult with an attorney in order to get a better understanding.
Okay, thank you very much. Attorney Noor. Don't forget the phone number is 216-279-3984, 216-279-3984. Good morning, attorney. My brother is arrested for the last 3 months for a fight in an apartment. He was put on immigration hold. He's only been in the United States for 2 years. Is it worth it to fight for his case or better to get a voluntary departure?
Again, without knowing anything more, it's very hard for me to tell you what's worth fighting and what's not worth fighting. You would need to talk to an attorney and bring all the facts. Generally speaking, I don't know. Also, I don't know what he's being charged with exactly, and if he has been convicted, what he's been convicted of. So all that, his status and what he should do, all depends on all of that. If he was, for example, convicted of a serious assault, that could be a problem. I mean, he may not have any relief available to him. If he was not, if something less than that, then it depends on what relief is available to him, whether he can keep his status, whether he can change to another status. It's very hard for me to tell you unless I know more facts. So again, I would strongly recommend that you talk to an attorney. We'd be happy to help you if you come to us and look at all the facts and see what would be beneficial to him. But I can't tell you right now whether or not he should take voluntary departure without knowing more than that.
Okay, thank you very much, Attorney Noor. And well, we're getting another interesting question, but let me just remind everybody that the attorney Margaret W. Wong and Associates have a law firm that is based in Cleveland, Ohio, where the headquarters are, but they have 7 offices in different cities of the United States: Atlanta, Columbus, Chicago, Cleveland, Nashville, New York, and Raleigh, North Carolina. And the phone number is just one. It's 216-279-3984, 216-279-3984 is the phone number that you need to call in order to talk to one of the attorneys and set your appointment for the next visit of the attorney Margaret W. Wong. She is today in Atlanta. Tomorrow she will be in Nashville, and Monday she will be in New York. So please give her a call, give the office a call to the phone number 216-279-3984 and get in touch with the attorneys in the law firm of Margaret W. Wong and Associates. This person says, I have an asylum pending, I have TPS, and my son was murdered 2 years ago. My question is, because I need to file for the work permit, what is the best option to file for, and what would be faster, TPS, asylum, or U visa?
Okay, so my understanding is that you have TPS status, so I'm assuming that you already have a work permit through TPS. Generally, the work permit through the TPS is valid for that TPS period, usually for about 18 months or whatever the period is. If you have an asylum pending, again, I'm not sure if the asylum was filed timely, what's going on with it, if it's with USCIS or it's with the court, all these things I would have to ask. But generally speaking, as of now, if you are able to file for a work permit through asylum, meaning that your asylum had to have been pending for at least 150 days, you would get a 5-year work permit instead of the year and a half with the TPS. But again, it would depend on where your asylum application is, when you filed it, what it's based on, all these things. I would need to know to better answer that question. As far as a U visa, that's a very long process. I wouldn't advise not to pursue the U visa though, because again, it depends on what relief is available to you. So if you have a really good asylum claim, it would be good to pursue that. If you're not sure about it, it's always good to have other forms of relief available to you that you can still try. You can file multiple applications or petitions at the same time. Sometimes people don't realize that. But in immigration, basically, you can have multiple forms of relief pending at the same time, and then whichever one you get granted or you succeed in, you can just withdraw the other ones and go with the one that that worked for you. However, I would again say, the general information that you've given me, it's very hard for me to give you a very specific answer. But other than the general information that I just gave you, I would really recommend that you call us, and we would be happy to help you out by looking further into your information and giving you better advice as to what you should do.
Okay, thank you so much, attorney. And yeah, well, and they have different time expirations. So for TPS, it's about 18 months.
Right.
For work permit is for asylum cases is 5 years, and I think for U visa is 4 years.
That's correct. For U visa, it's 4 years. However, it takes longer to be able to get the work permit. I think right now it's taking about 2 years after you file the U visa petition before you're able to get a work permit through the pending U visa petition. So that's why, there's a lot of factors to consider.
Yeah. So if you already have the asylum, the C8 category work permit, just keep filing for it. And now the good news is that you're going to have it for at least 5 years. So,
right.
As long as you have the case pending.
Right.
Okay. Next question is Abraham says, I have a pending asylum from the Africa in Guinea. I wonder what the question is, but are those cases generally strong cases or are very weak?
Well, again, it depends on a lot of factors. I don't think that currently Guinea has any sort of is not in any sort of situation that would make it highly probable that you would win an asylum case. But again, it depends on their individual circumstances. It's very hard to answer these very general questions when it's hard to answer specific questions that have general information. I would need to know more, and that's why, again, we always recommend that you talk to an attorney. Something may have happened to you in Guinea where you would have a very strong asylum application, but generally speaking, as of right now, Guinea is not one of the countries that you would automatically assume that you can easily succeed in an asylum application from. But again, it depends on your specific circumstances.
Okay, thank you so much, attorney. And for Abraham, if you are in the United States, you need to apply for asylum if you have a case within 1 year since your arrival in this country. So for any other information, please give us a call. The phone number is 216-279-3984, 216-279-3984. Hi, what visas are qualified for human trafficking victims, and what are the types of crime considered human trafficking?
So, well, I mean, kind of speaks for itself. There's a visa category called a T visa, and that's for victims of human trafficking. There's different types of human trafficking. There's, basically like sex trafficking. There's trafficking in children, just smuggling people across borders. If you have, if there's, sort of a scheme or an organization that smuggles people across borders, that could qualify as trafficking. The T visa, in terms of getting it, is kind of similar to the U visa, but it's just very specific to victims of trafficking crimes. So if you do think that you might qualify for something like that, I would urge you to come talk to us so we can look at your facts. But yeah, generally, but yeah, the visa category is called a T visa, and the application is kind of similar to that of the U visa. But I would strongly recommend that you come and talk to us so we can better understand your case and give you better advice.
Thank you very much, Attorney Noor. And well, the Attorney Noor has a lot of experience in several immigration areas, but one of them is asylum cases, also cancellation of removal, which is one of the specialties that I think this is one of the most emotional parts of the immigration practice. because you get to see the suffering of people that have someone detained and about to be deported or removed to their home country. And it's heartbreaking sometimes to see how kids are crying for daddy or for mom, and no matter what, the government, they remove them. Sometimes there are good reasons for that, but but other times there are no good reasons for it, and it's really heartbreaking. So that's why many people quit and they don't keep going with this immigration branch of the law, because it's very very emotional, and you can be down sometimes, attorney. You can feel like you don't win a case, or you don't get the result you expect, and that takes you down somehow.
Well, also, immigration law is extremely complicated. So most normal people are not going to fully understand immigration law. They're not going to fully understand what options are available to them. So, they may easily give up, based on their individual circumstances, and it's understandable. For example, if you're detained and you just don't want to be detained anymore, and you would rather just, be deported than have to sit in jail for a while. But it's really important that you speak with an experienced immigration attorney, because they might know things, or actually they will for sure know things that you wouldn't know. And they may talk to you about options that are available to you that you had no idea previously that those were possibilities. So that's why whenever you're in this situation, talking to an experienced advocate is always very helpful and very important in order to get a positive outcome in your case.
That's true. Thank you very much, attorney. And we have time for one more question. How about I have pending I have a pending AOS for a little over a year. What are my options to speed it up? I mean, to adjudicate.
Right. Well, the processing times are, quite long with adjustment of status applications. I don't know off the top of my head the current specific processing times, but over a year seems, pretty common. As far as speeding it up, you could always request an expedite of your specific application or petition, but you have to have a compelling reason as to why they would allow you to basically skip the line. Because there's a lot of people that have been waiting maybe longer than you, or they're just waiting to get their case adjudicated. And when you ask for your case to speed up, you're basically telling them to put your case before somebody else's case. And the only reason they would be willing to do that is if you have some compelling situation, like a humanitarian situation, a serious medical condition, maybe somebody's going to die, maybe you really need to travel. There's some situations where you can present a compelling reason, but if it's just a normal circumstance, it's very unlikely that they would expedite your case. You're just going to have to wait the processing time and wait for your case to be adjudicated.
Okay, thank you very much, attorney. And well, our time is up for now. But thank you very much for having us today, and looking forward to talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and have a good lunch.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. And for everybody who has joined us today, don't forget the phone number is 216-279-3984, 216-279-3984. Talk to the attorneys in the law firm of Margaret W. Wong and Associates. See you next time.